Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we have got an interesting show today because we're going to talk about teenagers dealing with grief and writing about it, which is really interesting, and particularly with all the problems kids are having right now with grief and loss of losing their schools and all the stuff that's going on, and being able to think about that in terms of grief and loss of family members, I think is really important. So you want to introduce our guest because it's going to be very interesting.
Yes, I first want to say that I love the topic because I have a 15-year-old who lost her grandfather 3 weeks ago. And we are here in New York City, not far from you, Tendo. And she is sheltering in and doing online school while she's grieving during a pandemic. And I'm interested to see what you're going to say about what we can do to help teens. So we are going to talk about teens writing about grief with Tendo Mutanda. And she is the Director of Programs and Partnerships at the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers, which is a nonprofit organization that presents the Scholastic Art Writing Awards. Welcome to the show, Tendo.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards is a program that's been around for nearly 100 years, and it provides a platform for teenagers to express their creativity. So we have 28 different categories in art and writing that students can submit their work to. Additionally, we have special awards. And so the one that's relevant to this podcast is the New York Life Award. Students can opt in their work to indicate that it deals with the loss of a loved one. And every year, the submissions are whittled down. Students have the opportunity to receive recognition on the regional level. And then the highest scoring works on the regional level are advanced to the national level. Wow. And on the national level, students have the opportunity to receive the National New York Life Award. There's also a regional New York Life Award in some states that we know are experiencing issues which ultimately lead to death, such as the opioid crisis. And so students might be eligible for a regional award. But anyhow, students have been dealing with loss, and that is compounded, of course, by the pandemic. And so we have students dealing with loss in different ways, because even if they had experienced it on within their own family, now it's different because we're talking about various members of their immediate community, and also thinking about the secondary losses. We have examples of work on our website where students are digging in and really exploring their grief and their process of coping with grief creatively. And we also offer workshops to help guide students through that process of thinking about their loss and then exploring it through writing. So some warm-up exercise, association activities and such, to really encourage them to dig deep and write. But of course, to do that, it takes a good workshop would be several sessions, or at least a full day, because it's quite a journey to begin unpacking and then producing. And we know that students need some, timeouts because they're often overwhelmed with emotion as they experience the creation process.
So Tendo, are the workshops writing workshops and art workshops, or mainly writing workshops?
They're actually both.
Okay.
Sometimes they're hybrid. I'll give you an example. Last year here in Newark, a workshop was hosted at the Newark Museum, and there were the students walked through the galleries. They looked at certain work where it was well known that the creator, the intent of the work was to explore grief. Students reacted to those works and then delved into writing. And so,
I love this.
yeah, there was another workshop at the Met in New York City,
Nice.
obviously pre-pandemic again, but students also took a tour through the galleries. They talked about the different colors that were used in a lot of the works that touched on grief and loss, and they explored what techniques the artists used. And then they actually they developed their own symbols that they would use to depict grief. And actually they ended up designing their own rugs. The designs were
Oh,
sent
wow.
to a weaving community in Turkey, and then we mailed their finished rugs featuring their designs to them a few months later. So these are just some examples of the different workshops that we offer. They're always free to students, and most recently we offered an online workshop to students that is still available on YouTube. So it's an asynchronous experience that both students and educators are welcome to and encouraged to access.
Wow, that sounds fabulous. You know, I love something you said, because we often talk about writing, you know, for grief and how useful it is. But I like the way you clarified it. First, it's unpacking and then producing. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. You know,
Mhm.
part of it is unpacking your grief and
Yeah.
then producing from that, which is an interesting way to look at it, isn't it, Heidi?
Yeah, I love that. It's very, and art and writing changes. The unpacking is very different, you know, once you get it unpacked, the art changes,
Yes,
right?
exactly, exactly. And the stories might, you know, the first few works that students create um, might just reflect the emotional part. They might not be so creative, but just because of that process that it takes
Mhm.
to sort of transition into their deeper creative selves to really eloquently write about their experiences. And that's what these students are doing. Their work is incredible. Some of it is featured in a publication that we have available online on our website, artandwriting.org, as a PDF. It's called Healing Through Creativity. This summer, we were also fortunate to partner with two premier organizations, the National Writing Project and also the National Association Educators of Visual Art Instruction. And they've created lesson plans to support that resource. So the resource is available for classroom teachers, it's available for grief and bereavement counselors, educators, community leaders, anyone who's interested in working with youth and helping them leverage creativity as a means of processing their grief.
So interesting, because I have a grandson. You know, my husband died 3 weeks ago and we had a funeral, and my grandson was there, and he is an artist, and he's young, and he had a sketch pad. Immediately gets his sketch pad out and starts sketching this whole scene, and is showing me, you know, the coffin and whatever. And I said to him, that is fantastic. And he was so proud to show me. And I said, that's really going to change some of your art during the coming year. I'm going to be really interested to see what you're doing. And he got, you know, a smile and said, yeah, it'll be good. So I could see the beginning of process for him was having that sketch pad there.
And the communication part is very important because teens speaking to other teens about their experience is very powerful. And so it creates a sense of community and awareness that they are not alone in this experience. We really do hope that this program inspires students to explore their own grief stories, but also we hope that the resources that we've made available are used so that educators and just community leaders feel empowered to reach out to teens and have just regular conversations about loss. It's not something that should be shoved quietly under the rug. There needs to be
it
space.
really resonates with me because I was able to have a connection with him looking at that together. It was kind of a sweet moment. So, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing, and give us your website again, because I know there are going to be a lot of people that access it that are going to want to know.
Sure, it's artandwriting.org. Everything spelled out. So artandwriting.org. We have a beautiful new website. So I hope that both students and educators and counselors take a visit.
Great. Well, Tendo, thank you for being on this show and for everything you're doing. It's really wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Tendo, for everything you're doing for teens out there and giving them a voice through the art and the writing.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for joining us today. And we want to tell you that we also have a YouTube of Tendo on site that Open to Hope did. And hopefully you will take a look at that. And also we want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.